What is health? It's spring here in North America and people are onto a healthy living kick. So when you hear that, what do you hear? Because I'll tell you what I hear mostly is people want to lose weight. Now, because I'm the leader of the Diet Rebellion, I often get criticized because I tell people, you know what if we shift it away from weight loss? What if we actually focused on health? And people go, Carrie, they're one and the same. Well, they're not really though. Let me explain. So 8 years ago, I broke up with the scale. The scale was like an abusive boyfriend. He was a little bad boy and he was a little enticing and there was a lot of drama associated with him, which was awesome when I was a teenager. As an adult though, you know what? I don't need drama in my life. I don't need people who are going to destroy my self-esteem. And that was the relationship I had with the scale. The scale itself, obviously, it's just a tool. It's that voice, which I will call the ex-boyfriend, that voice is what came every time I got on that scale. Started with my very first diet when I went in and every week I got weighed. And every week it was a praise for weight loss and well, you can do things differently next week for a nil or a gain, no matter how small, a couple ounces, doesn't matter. Tangent, back, Carrie. Okay, so health. Do you actually need to know what you weigh to know how healthy you are? That is what I'm going to talk about today a little bit. I'm going to share a couple stories about how this played out in my life most recently. So 8 years ago, I broke up with that ex-boyfriend. I said, you know what? I don't need that in my life. And what I realized was that my weight actually had very little impact on my day-to-day life. Yeah, very little. Think about it. How often do you actually need to know your weight? Like need to know, where it matters, where it influences the outcome of something. Not often, actually. So there are two circumstances in which I believe knowing your weight is uber important. And if you know of another one, please post it in the comments. I'd like to know if I'm missing anything. This winter, I decided that I was going to get back on the ski slopes. My son and I went out, got some new equipment. We're like, rock on. I hadn't skied in 10 years. It was so exciting to be back on the hills. I love winter as long as I can play in the snow. If there's no playing in the snow, winter's not nearly as much fun. Now, I know that from 10 years ago, I am a larger size. I'm fairly confident that I have a greater gravitational pull towards the earth, aka I've gained weight. Now, for my bindings to be safe for me, they have to be set for my current weight. So I knew I needed to get on the scale so that I could ski safely with my kid. Otherwise, I ran the risk of having skis popping off every 5 minutes, or worse, skis that didn't pop off when they really should have, and potentially really hurting myself. The safety was the key here. And this often happens with sporting equipment, right? I mean, it's important that your life jacket can actually hold your weight when you're out boating or doing other kinds of activities. A rebel of mine, one of my clients, she was going ziplining with her husband. Well, there's an upper weight limit to the zip line. So they needed to know how much they weighed before they went to make sure it was safe. You see where I'm going with this, right? It's really important from a safety perspective. So I weighed myself for the first time in 8 years. Now I'll get back to that actual experience, but I wanted to make sure you knew the second one first. The second reason to know how much you weigh is if you are about to have a medication that is weight dependent. For instance, with children, right? I mean, we know we have to base them, many of the painkillers and fever medications are on weight. Even herbal medicines depend on the child's weight. The same is true for adults, although less frequently because our range is a little safer. Another tangent, sorry. So, what is it that I needed to know my weight for? Well, I was having an MRI and they had to put an IV in for the contrast. They needed to know my weight for that. So here was two circumstances in a short amount of time that I needed to know my weight. Honestly, if it isn't a safety thing from an equipment standpoint, or it isn't a medication, why else do you actually need to know your weight? And does knowing your weight serve you? Or is it like that nasty ex-boyfriend? So here I am. It's I don't know, in the fall, and I needed to get my skis tuned up because we got an early winter. Yes. Now remember, it had been 8 years since I weighed myself, and I knew that I was bigger than I was the last time I'd weighed myself 8 years ago. So I was standing actually in this room, and I was looking at the scale, and I was feeling a little anxious. Because despite the fact that in 8 years I have done an incredible job at healing my relationship with my food and with my body, I know how to manage a voice like that ex-boyfriend. He absolutely will never control me the way he did back then, whether it's about the scale or the food or anything. He no longer gets a say there. Despite all of that, I was nervous because I remember what it was like to see that number. You know, that number? I had a few of them over the years. The first that number when I was in grade 7, grade 8, when I decided that I clearly needed to lose weight, and that was the beginning of the first diet, official diet. There was another one of those numbers in high school, and that was the number that precipitated the desperation that led to bulimia, because I was already firmly entrenched in binge eating by that point. There was that number again when I was in university. That number happened many, many times, and I'm sure you have many of that number in your history as well. It was that number where I was, well, at least I'm not that fat yet. And then I'd reach that number, and then I'd desperately freak out, go on a big life changing thing. I'm going to restrict this. I'm going to start working out this way. I'm gonna big plan, right? Those were those like rock bottom moments. I had a lot of those too. Tangents today. Carrie, get back on track. So that number is what I was nervous about. I was nervous that getting on the scale, I was going to see that number and that it was going to trigger those thoughts. So before I got on the scale, I called my lifeline. I phoned my psychotherapist and mentor and said, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm going to do it. Can I have an appointment next week, please? So step one, I preemptively made sure that I had some backup in case the ex-boyfriend got a little aggressive. So then here I am standing there, get on the scale, take a few deep breaths. I know it's got to calibrate. Then I step off and take a look. And here is that moment. Let me first tell you about what that moment would have been all those years ago. That ex-boyfriend voice would have made his way into my head, and he would have explained to me things like, I'm so lazy, I can't believe I let it get this far, I'm so out of control, I'm about to drop dead of a heart attack, I'm gonna get diabetes, no one's gonna respect me, how am I gonna be taken seriously, and on and on and on. The voice that would come at that point in the past was more brutal than anyone could ever be with me. Because, come on, we know that the ex-boyfriend was part of me. And he was relentless and ruthless. I was relentless and ruthless with myself. This time it was different though. This time what I did was I listened to what the ex-boyfriend had to say. Yeah, I actually listened because he's a part of me. And it doesn't matter which way I try to flip that upside down, that voice is part of what's inside me. And that voice is going to pop up. So I said, all right, let's talk. What do you got to say? So we addressed the you're lazy. Let me remind you, the reason why I got on the scale was because I was going to be skiing all winter. And ski I did 2-3 times a week. It was awesome. I'm not a lazy person. I'm actually more active than most North Americans are. Now, does that mean that my fitness regime cannot be improved upon? It absolutely can be. And in fact, it was over the winter because the skiing brought out all kinds of muscles that I hadn't used in a long time. And I became aware of where some of my deficiencies were in my physique to improve my performance on the hills. So was there a silver lining to that one? You bet there was, but it was not because he told me I was lazy. All right. Number 2 big argument comes down to health. This I'm about to drop dead of a heart attack or I'm going to get diagnosed with diabetes is prevailing thought. And that is what people are judging all of us who carry extra weight on. And it doesn't matter how much extra weight is there. That's really important to know. It doesn't matter if you've got 100 pounds to lose or 20 pounds to lose according to your doctor, nutritionist, I don't know, Self Magazine, whatever. It's that number. Tangent yet again. Carry back to focus. So my health. What is my health? Well, let's just for right now, because here's another big possible tangent. Health is a whole lot of things. Physical health is but one of them. But for the purpose of this video, not ending up being 3 days long, let's stick with that health is your risk of developing a disease, like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, osteoporosis. So from a cardiovascular perspective, weight is definitely one of the risks that goes with it. That's been linked in the studies, but so is blood pressure, so is cholesterol, so is activity level, so is family history, so is whether I smoke or not, whether I have diabetes. Need I go on? There are a lot of risk factors. Weight is one of them. What's interesting is gender is one of the risk factors. Yeah, so my husband, because he's a man, just by default, he has double the risk of cardiovascular disease. So does that make all men unhealthy? Probably not. Probably not. No one would think that way. But someone who carries extra weight, bam, that's the problem. And you know why? Because you can't look at me and know my blood pressure or my cholesterol levels or my family history or whether I smoke or not. You can't know the other risk factors. So I wear this particular risk factor for all to see. And as such, anyone who wears this particular risk factor is subject to so many people feeling compelled to educate about your health. Again, they don't know how often you move your body. They don't know what you put in your mouth. They don't know anything other than your weight. And yet they assume that your health is at grave, grave risk. Because that is the world, that is the media, that is our doctors and our nurses and our naturopaths and our dietitians and everybody out there right now who is expressing that these two things, your weight equals your health. But it's not, in fact. So, being the geek that I am, because I really like to know, I like numbers, you know? I hate these words of low risk, medium risk, high risk. Well, what is that number? What is high risk? Does high risk mean I'm 90% likely to drop dead of a heart attack tomorrow? Or does it mean I'm 20% likely? I don't know. I want to know. So I plugged in my information. I put these links in the description, so please check out your own health risks. My cardiovascular risk is under 5%. That means that in the next 10 years, I have a 5% chance of having a heart attack or stroke. 5%. Now, if you add in the lifestyle factor that I am active, that drops in half. Pretty awesome, right? So, from a cardiovascular perspective, it would appear I'm actually pretty healthy. Nice. What about diabetes though? Carrie, diabetes, fatness, they are so linked and so important. Okay, great. So again, there's another link. I looked into that. I'm in the lowest risk category, which means somewhere between 0 and 15% chance of developing diabetes in the next 10 years. So, if I'm in the lowest risk category, can I not be called healthy? I think I can be, and I do. I hereby declare myself a healthy individual. Ha! But people around me, people on my Instagram account or on my Facebook account or on the YouTube channel feel compelled to tell me how fat I am and that, you know what? It's not healthy, Carrie. Curious. What's not healthy, what does not contribute to my health, is having people comment on that, having people judge me. What's not good for my health is seeing how Nike got lambasted because they actually produced a plus size line. You know the comments that came out to Nike when they did that? That they were promoting obesity. Hey, that's a major criticism of me. I'm promoting obesity. That's what I'm told very regularly. In fact, what Nike is doing, what I am doing, is providing a platform and a space so that people can, in fact, improve their health. Pretty awesome, right? Because guess what shaming does? Shaming makes people hide. And guess what an emotional eater is going to do when they feel stressed and ashamed? They're going to turn to food. But wouldn't it be cool if we could change this dialogue? If we could really create an environment where women and men could work on their health. Yeah. You know how it starts? It starts with the conversation that you have with your body every day, with that ex-boyfriend. Maybe he's still your boyfriend. He could be an ex though. You could do that. And there's ways to do that. Number 2, move your body in a way that's enjoyable and pleasant to you as often as you'd like. And you know, that depends on your current fitness level. There are some people who cannot get up a flight of stairs without being winded. So having a goal for them to do a 5K something is not reasonable. We're going to find health goals, fitness goals that work for you, right? Things that matter to you. And then thirdly is creating a healthy relationship with food. You know, emotional eating is a big challenge. Emotional eating can be from I'm bored to I have major issues going on in my family and everything in between. Those are things that need to be addressed. Because once you have a healthy relationship with food, you're going to take care of your body. It all comes down to respect. So before I go off on more tangents, I'm going to end it there today and just let you know you can be a healthy person with extra weight. And that person that you see walking down the street or that posts something on Facebook or Instagram, you don't know their health. So please refrain from educating them.